Okay, everyone, we have Coach Anthony Tran here with us today from The Farm from Stanford University, and super excited to have him on. We've just been chatting offline a little bit here, and a good connection with Adam Garner at UCLA. He's the current internship coordinator there, and now Anthony, who kind of had some time under Adam, is now internship coordinator at Stanford. So it's really cool to see these networks and these trees kind of growing, and everyone coming together on My Momentum Connect. So it's awesome. But hey, what I want to do first is just give you the floor, Anthony, and allow you to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you and your background, and maybe touch on a few mentors and those developmental opportunities that you had as you moved into the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate what you guys are doing for our internship and for other universities out there. So Anthony Tran, I'm an assistant sports performance coach here at Stanford. I work with men's soccer, men's swim, wrestling, and women's gymnastics, as well as being the intern coordinator here at Stanford. The way I came up, I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. I did my undergrad at Ohio State. And then I came out to California to get my master's at Cal Baptist in kinesiology. While I was at Cal Baptist, kind of volunteered a little bit in the weight room, but it was mostly an academic master's program. Did that in a year. And then my last semester at Cal Baptist was kind of an internship semester. So I went out to LA and did my internship at UCLA. And that's where I met Adam, like you were mentioning, who's now the internship coordinator at UCLA. So I did my 6-month internship there at UCLA. And the guys out there, Coach Lynn, who's the director there now and who's the director while I was there, got me connected with the director here at Stanford, said, hey, I think you did a really good job for us. And I think you really do a really good job at Stanford. Let's send you over there and do another internship. So then I did another 6-month internship here at Stanford, which for, first 2 internships in your strength conditioning for UCLA and Stanford, it's not a bad first 2 stops. But I did a 6-month internship there. And then here at Stanford, it's a little different than some other universities. We offer kind of part-time contingent roles. So when I finished my internship, I got hired on as a part-time contingent. And then I worked in that position for about a year, and then I got hired on full-time. I'm going on my 5th year here now at Stanford. So I spent lots of time out here in California and up at the farm, but that's kind of how I got to where I got to right now.
Nice. A man from the Midwest heading to the West Coast. That's a big deal.
Exactly. Everybody's dream from Columbus, Ohio, is get out to California sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. No, we're in the depth of the winter here in Milwaukee, and I'm wondering, maybe we should make the move to a warm weather state. Yeah. Might not be a bad idea. No, that's great. That's really cool. And I love hearing these developmental journeys. Obviously, you made an impact where you're at. And hence why they took you on part-time and now a full-time role as well at Stanford.
Yeah.
So it's
and I think my journey and what I tell our interns in our internship program is do a good job of where you're at and make good connections. And that's how you kind of get around this field. And I think my career ends up showing that out. So I can kind of speak to our interns, which is a pretty nice connection I have whenever I'm running the interns kind of through our education process.
Absolutely. And we obviously already mentioned Adam a couple of times, and not to make his head too big here, but obviously runs a stellar internship there, and I'm sure you've probably learned some things, whether you knew it or not at the time. You've probably taken some things that you were taught to you by Adam and his staff, and now you're kind of implementing, whether it's a couple of things or many things at Stanford as well. So in terms of the young coaches who are developing through Stanford, can you give us an idea of what's the typical daily schedule look like for them? Is it a Monday through Friday? Does it include weekends? Does it depend on the semester? Just give us a bit of a broad picture of what that looks like for them.
Yeah, and just to shout out Adam real fast. Adam was actually interning with me. We interned together. And then he got hired on at UCLA, took over their internship program almost at the same time when I got hired on at Stanford and took over our internship program. So we go back and forth all the time about, hey, what are you doing with these interns? It's very similar to what we went through with UCLA, just because that's what we know. Right. But we go back and forth like, hey, you got any applicants? Hey, you do anything different? Anything worked better this quarter, that quarter? And that's how I actually found out about you guys. So it's been a really great connection to have. In terms of our interns and what the schedule looks like, we run 2 internship classes per year. One that goes January to July, which covers our winter and spring quarters, our academic quarters here. And then one that goes, January to June. And then one that goes July to December, which covers summer and fall quarters. So they're about 6-month internship classes per person or per quarter. And then in terms of day-to-day scheduling, we have our interns come in Monday through Friday. We like to explain it as kind of an immersive experience, right? We want people that come to our internship to really know what it's like day in and day out to be a collegiate strength and conditioning coach. So with 36 sports here and with kind of a full training load, we have our interns here Monday through Friday, from when the first team gets here till when the last team kind of trains, just so they can experience what it's like, what the day is like, what the middle of the day is like in terms of administrative duties, what coaching is like, what setup and breakdown is like, all the things. We try to get our coaches as much experience doing those things as possible. So it's kind of what our schedule looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like any internship a young coach goes through is going to be unique in and of itself, regardless of if it's an NAIA school or a D3 and there's only a head coach and a graduate assistant, or it's a Stanford and you have 36 sports and an insane number of student athletes. But I think certainly at Stanford, it's really unique because you have those sports that aren't quite as common across the NCAA, such as sailing and squash and I think it's artistic
swimming. Yeah.
Right. So,
fencing.
Yeah, fencing as well. Yeah, that's awesome. So how would an intern who comes to develop under you guys, would they see all of those sports? Are there a couple of different facilities on campus where they would be able to like rotate through? Like, how does that setup look?
Yeah, so what it generally looks like, we eventually, after the first couple weeks, assign our interns to sports. And because, like you said, we have so many sports, our interns get a lot of experience working with different kinds of sports, right? We have 36 sports here, 35 that our interns work with outside of football. They have their own internship. And then the way it works is we just describe our interns as kind of second in command, right? They're the assistant to the full-time coach, whether that's coaching responsibilities, whether that's warm-up responsibilities at practice, responsibilities doing sports science stuff, running force decks and NordBoard and all that kind of stuff. And the good thing is, because we have so many sports and because we only have a certain number of staff, especially with some of these smaller sports with smaller roster sizes, the sailings, the squashes, the fencing, that kind of thing, our interns really get some hands-on experience with those sports just because our full-time staff has a ton of other sports to work with too. So it's always good to have hands on deck. And with those smaller sports, our interns get a lot of hands-on experience. And then with the bigger sports, they get to be kind of second command with our full-time strength and conditioning staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. And the cool thing about it as well is like, even here with my intern coaches at Marquette, we tried across the semester or two to expose them to large team settings, small team settings, male teams, female teams, mixed teams, so they understand that. And certainly at Stanford, I'm sure they have so many. It's not just necessarily the technical and tactical aspects of designing a program for that team, but also the cultural pieces as to like, how does sailing come in versus how does women's lacrosse come in, Yeah, I'm sure there's so many.
And we also do our best to try to get our interns experience with multiple types of sports. So court sports, field sports, aquatic sports, non-traditional sports, and sports where they may have more to do in terms of warm up or leading lifts or that kind of thing, and sports where they may have less to do, that the full-time coach kind of takes more in charge of.
Mm-hmm. Right. And with being alongside coaches, working with that variety of sports, obviously this like organic learning that happens during the sessions, which is some of the most valuable. But in terms of the directed learning that you have as what you could call a curriculum for your intern program, can you touch on that a little bit and maybe pull out a couple of key details as to maybe like how many times you meet per week? What do the assignments look like? Maybe, if you could hang your hat on one or two things that you say, I think we do this really well, or this is where the field's heading, and so we focus on X. Like, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm. So I like to think of our internship curriculum in kind of three parts. The first part of our internship curriculum is Strength Coach 101. We try to give our young interns as all of the tools they need to be a strength coach out in the strength coach world, right? Out into the fields. Things that we think they need to know: programming, periodization, how to run lifts, lift logistics, weight room logistics, all of that kind of stuff that we think are basic things that every strength coach needs to know. Secondly, second part of our internship, we try to get into some of the stuff that we here at Stanford can provide, right? We have a lot of sports science. We have a lot of different coaches doing a lot of different things, sprint profiling, DSI stuff, all the things that we think maybe we're doing that some other universities might not be doing, that they might not get kind of hands-on experience with. And then the third part of the internship, which is my favorite part of the internship, is kind of trying to develop the strength coach holistically. I think a lot of times, and in our fields, the mindset is I got to grind myself until I get there, right? And we try to develop coaches that love their job, that have a good work-life balance, that understand when it's time to work, but also when it's time to kind of back off, right? Because that's how we think we can create longevity in this field. And unfortunately, there's depending on the university or the coach, there's not a lot of longevity in our field. We see a lot of young coaches kind of get out of the field. A lot of interns that I check in with 5-10 years down the road potentially might not be in the field anymore. So we like to add into our curriculum filling your cup, right? Overcoming obstacles early in your career. How do you get through kind of past just generic networking and really create relationships in this field? And we try to cover all of that stuff towards the end of the internship before they kind of go out on their own, finding the next job or their next GA, to make sure that they're prepared on that side too, because we do think that part is important.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Pulling again from something here at Marquette, there's this phrase that we use frequently called cura personalis, which just means like care for the whole individual. And I think that's super important. And I think more and more I've heard more positive conversations about things like this being taught about like longevity and how to have difficult conversations and how to say no more often to opportunities that may not be, leading you down the correct path. But you just feel like, I should say yes as a young coach. It's part of the reason why we're making this resource for people so they can make better decisions about their future rather than just blindly walking into something that eventually ends up derailing them and saying, this isn't for me anymore, versus another opportunity could have been a better one.
Absolutely. And as an ambassador in this field, right, we people who run internship programs, I feel have kind of an obligation to send out the next wave of future strength coaches in kind of the fashion that we'd like to see to build kind of a better future for our field, right? We're always trying to push the field forward in terms of research and sports science and whatnot. Let's also push the field forward in terms of work-life balance and the kind of people that we send out there. So I think we try to attack it both ways in terms of our education.
100%. And obviously at Stanford, you sent out numerous people into the strength conditioning field, having come through the Stanford internship experiences. And some of them may have been with you for just one quarter, some for two, or even longer if they were, for example, students there at Stanford. But can you touch on maybe a couple of your alumni network who have moved on in the field, maybe touch on like what they were like when they were with you and why you think their personalities or skill sets or abilities while they're with you allowed them to take that next step to where they are now?
Yeah, the first intern that I'll talk about actually interned with me while I was at Stanford, Ryan Tibbetts, who's currently at Baylor right now as an assistant director there, and he works with baseball primarily. He was in my intern class, so we grinded a lot of days together, a lot of setting up boxes, a lot of cleaning up weight rooms. But I think he was successful then and extremely successful now. Because one, he has a passion for the field, right? It's a lot easier to do some of the quote unquote intern things, setting up lifts, breaking down lifts, that kind of thing, when you really love what you're doing and when you really have a passion to try to get to where you need to be. And then two, he was always prepared. Maybe one of the most prepared people that I've been around. His career got started in a funny fashion because while we were interns, he was working with women's soccer. And the full-time women's soccer strength coach at that point left Stanford. And during the hiring process, he was covering lifts because he had the most experience there, right? And I think it's a lot to ask for an intern to kind of run a program like Stanford women's soccer strength and conditioning, but he was ready, he was prepared. And that's kind of how he got the in to leading his first team, right? And regardless of the opportunities that came up, he was ready for it. He was ready for it when he got hired here at Stanford full time. He was ready for it when he got hired over at Baylor. And I think that's the biggest thing that stuck out about him, for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we hear this term all the time, being like, right place, right time. I was lucky. I'm blessed to have the opportunity. And credit where credit's due. But if you're not somebody who is trusted or liked, or you don't have the respect from the athletes, then you're never going to be asked to cover that group anyway. So I think, just like we talked about at the start, if you just like pour yourself into the opportunity where you are and kind of like make the big time where you're at, so to speak, then eventually those opportunities are going to come back towards you, whether it's 6 months down the road when somebody leaves, or whether it's 3 years into the future when that person who has left Stanford now connects with you somewhere else in the country, and all of a sudden you have a job offer from them. So
and that's a great segue into kind of one of our other former interns, Kohei Tamagawa. He's currently with the Phoenix Suns right now, and he was one of my interns that I hired. And he's an international kid, really hard worker. But the funny thing is, he kind of poured himself into men's basketball while he was here. And he worked with Corey Schlesinger, who used to be the men's basketball strength and conditioning coach here, who's now the strength coach for the Phoenix Suns. And Corey is one of my biggest mentors while I was an intern, because I worked with men's basketball as well. But Kohei did something really special where he did all his intern duties. He coached his ass off. Am I allowed to swear on this? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Drop whatever you want. Not a big deal.
Yeah, he coached his ass off. He worked really hard, but he also found avenues to make himself invaluable, right? Because he worked with Corey in men's basketball and they were doing some force plate stuff. He said, hey, I made this Excel sheet for some of our force numbers. Do you want to use it? Right? He said, hey, can I try to run some of these numbers and try to tell you a story that maybe you're not seeing yet? Hey, I can run all of your jumps for you. Hey, while guys are practicing, if we need to take one back, like, let me do it. He found ways to make himself valuable. And when Corey got the job at the Suns, it's pretty obvious who the first person he called is to kind of come with them to run their sports science stuff. So little things like that, just making yourself valuable to people that you're around, I think go a long way. And we're lucky enough to have had people do that while they were here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Make yourself invaluable, that if you had to leave, there would be a big gap. So people want to keep you on and find a way to keep you on, because they will.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. So I presume you get a number of applications every quarter to your developmental program, your internship program there at Stanford. So in terms of maybe young coaches who are watching this video right now, what kinds of coaches are you looking for? And this is kind of a difficult question sometimes, because often we're just like, well, we just want anyone to apply, whereas other schools might say we really want this kind of person. So what are you looking for? Is there any one individual, like, we really need this kind of guy or girl right now, or do you have like all kind of avenues open?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're looking for, I think a lot of people, when they apply for internships, I've seen a lot of people send that to me. I hope I have enough experience. I hope my resume kind of speaks for itself, that kind of thing. And that's not necessarily what we look for. We generally take greener interns with less experience, because we find those interns have the qualities we want. Interns that are really, really excited to learn, interns that really want to be a part of this field, or really want to find out if they want to be a part of this field, and interns that are going to put their head down and work really hard. The other stuff, the X's and O's of strength and conditioning, I think we can teach that. And I think that's why we don't necessarily need interns with a lot of strength and conditioning experience. But we do want people who have the mindset that they can soak up everything that we have to offer, and that are willing to kind of learn some of the stuff that we're going to teach, because we think a lot of the stuff that we want to teach, we want to kind of send out into the strength and conditioning field. So interns that work hard, interns that are really excited to learn, and interns that are really excited to be a part of this field or find out if they want to be a part of this field are the people that we're looking for the most part. And I think a lot of that, people might hear that and think it's hyperbole, like, yeah, they want hard workers, yeah, they want this and that. Everyone that has been successful in an internship has been the hardest worker in their intern class, quote unquote. I think it's almost 10 for 10, 100 for 100, and it is pretty apparent. And when I ask the rest of our staff, like, hey, what do you think about this internship class? Hey, what do you think about this person, that person? Generally, the first positive thing anybody says about any of our interns, that person is a grinder. That person works really hard. That person's on top of their stuff. And that's what we really look for. So I think anyone looking to apply for our internship, if you have those qualities, will probably be pretty successful at our internship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you said it best. You can teach the technical and tactical side of everything, really. But yeah, you can't teach passion and conviction. You know, so you heard it here first. If anyone's watching this video and want to apply to Stanford, make sure you emphasize that in your.
You know what to say on your interview. It'll be with me, so you know what to say.
Perfect. That's great. All right. Well, Coach Tran, I appreciate your time. Hopefully, this will be a great resource for you guys moving forward, as much as it is for anyone who's watching this video and taking in, what you've got to say and what Stanford has to offer. Because obviously, we're looking to mentor these young coaches more broadly and help them into the roles that they want to eventually get to. So, yeah, like I say, I appreciate your time and look forward to chatting more with you guys in the future.
Absolutely. Appreciate you doing this.
Of course.